Hello. A question to start with. Have you heard of a man called Stanislav Petrov? I suppose not. Assuming not, you might be surprised to know that he saved the world. And that's not an exaggeration. He really did save the world from total destruction. This talk is about him. You may have guessed from his name, Stanislav Petrov, that he's Russian. And he saved the world back in 1983. And from that information, you may be able to guess something about the situation. Back in the 1960s through to the 1980s, the Cold War between the West, the NATO countries, and the former USSR was a constant threat to peace. People back then were genuinely concerned about nuclear war between the Americans and the Soviet Union. In 1962, for example, there was the Cuban Missile Crisis. This was widely reported at the time. However, the heroic work of Stanislav Petrov is less well known, although a documentary film was released about the incident in 2015. So let me explain what he did. Petrov was an officer in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, and it was the job of him and his team to monitor early warning systems of nuclear attacks against the Soviet Union. On the 26th of September 1983, the computer systems that he was monitoring signalled that the Americans had launched up to 5 nuclear missiles against the Soviet Union. Petrov's job was to inform his superiors of this attack so that they could, if they so decided, authorise a retaliation attack. He saved the world because he believed that the system had a fault, so he didn't report it to his superiors. The reasons why he decided it was a fault in the system are a little unclear, but I'll list for you a number of the possibilities. They include the small number of missiles that the system said had been launched, which was not more than 5. Secondly, the new and not yet trustworthy system the Soviets were using. And finally, the fact that the radars positioned on the ground had not picked up any evidence of these missiles. Now, obviously, Petrov couldn't be sure that the attack was not happening, and he was basically acting against the procedures that he should have been following. Now, had it been a different person at the monitoring station that day, the outcome might have been very different. These were times of very high tension. Just a few weeks before this incident, the Soviets had shot down a Korean civilian passenger plane, killing all 257 passengers after it flew through some restricted Soviet airspace. The 747 plane was travelling from New York to Seoul. With tensions between the countries so high at this time, it would have been easy to assume that the Americans were launching a nuclear attack, and almost certainly the Russians would have retaliated with their own nuclear weapons. Now, bearing in mind that the nuclear weapons of that time were far more powerful than the ones used against Japan at the end of the Second World War, we can assume that millions upon millions of people would have lost their lives, and vast areas of the world would have been totally devastated. History would have changed completely in a matter of minutes. And all this was avoided thanks to the actions of one man. Now, because these were secretive times, the incident was kept a secret until the 1990s. And since then, Petrov has received a number of awards, including the World Citizen Award, and had a film, the one I mentioned earlier, made about him. It's called The Man Who Saved the World. So, a little bit of knowledge there that you might be able to use in pub quizzes. Thank you very much.